Welcome back to the Art of Quarantine. Today we're going to talk about drawing eyes, and with the assumption that this is where we're starting with, that this is where you're at right now, and we're going to go from there. So we can tend to start out when we're younger thinking about eyeballs as being shaped like a football with a circle in it and with a smaller circle inside that. But in reality, eyes can be shaped like a whole lot of different things. And generally, they're not going to be a football shape. So a lot of times we'll get kind of a curve up, a curve out, and then here we'll get a curve down, and then another curve up. It's more like a lemon that goes to a point on the edge than it is a football shape. And often this eyelid on the top is going to come past a little bit. That'll start to already give us a little bit of a sense of our eyelash coming past. So starting out, what can be good is just practicing different eyeball shapes. So sometimes they'll be shaped like an almond, sometimes it'll be shaped more like this. Some eyes slant up, some eyes slant down. Sometimes you'll have an eye that has the lid that comes over it, so the eye is going to end up being more flattened out at the top. So eyeballs can be shaped a whole lot of different ways. So it can be good to look at a bunch of pictures, look at the people around you, and just observe what their eyes shape looks like, and practice making some of these different shapes that aren't just a football. And now when we talk about this pupil being in here, the iris, this is the iris, this is the pupil. The iris, when we're starting out, we tend to think that we can see this whole iris. But if we look at someone's actual eye, you almost never see the whole iris. Part of that iris is covered up by the eyelid. So usually what you actually see is just this bottom part of the iris coming down. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this iris in all of these. Here you can see my iris, usually it's going to come down to rest along that bottom line. While the pupil, you can see the whole pupil in there. So it can be good to also get some of this eyelid in there. Here the eyelid's going to come past a little bit. To start to think about the eyelid being there. It can also be good to start thinking about where your light source is coming from. I'm going to put another little circle here, and that's going to represent my light source. I'm going to give the same light source to all three of these eyes, and I'm going to leave that white. From there I can go ahead and fill in these pupils. And you can see I'm already getting a much better version of an eye on these than this football shape would be. That just getting these shapes to be less symmetrical than this, where you have an inside of the eye and then outside of an eye, really starts to help. So the next thing that we want to talk about is how to get these eyes to line up with one another. I remember when I was younger, I would always make these drawings where I would make an eye. I would spend hours making an eye that I liked, really putting a lot of detail into it, and having this really So I remember making an eye that I was really happy with, and then I would come in and I would draw the nose and I would be happy with that as well. And as I would go on, I would then get to this other eye to go across from it. And when I'd start drawing it, I would do something like this. Well, something that it might be a good eye, but it doesn't match the eye that I already drew. That the second eye and this first eye, they don't go together. And this is so frustrating to do. I know that there's probably a lot of you out there that have had this problem. So what I'm going to suggest is figuring out how your face is laid out from the beginning. And so we're going to start by talking about eyes. Instead of just going in and drawing an eye and finishing it, it can be good to start with 2 lines that go across the face. And these are 2 lines to tell me where the top and bottom of my eyes are. So if I have one eye that's here, I'm going to have another eye that's there, and laying out from the beginning where my eyes are going to go. That way I know my nose is going to be in this region, and this is going to be my cheekbones. Having this kind of face layout from the beginning can be really, really helpful. I'm even going to start to lay out my eyebrow. Where those are going to go. That way, when I start this eye that I'm going to spend a lot of time on, I already know where the other eye goes. I can even give myself, I'm going to have these eyes slant some, so I'm even going to give myself a line that is symmetrical that goes from either direction of that center point. And this symmetrical line will give me the inside corner of the eye and the outside corner of the eye, which these are going to be pretty slanted. So I can start one eye. I'm going to bring this down more. And I already know that these eyes are going to fit together. You can see I'm not spending too much time on one eye before I move to the other eye. And once I get to a point that I can kind of see what's going on, I'm going to take a quick break, look at what I have, and say, does anything need to be fixed? I'm going to bring this eyelid up a little bit because I don't love it on either side. This I'm not going to get rid of entirely. I'm just going to get rid of this outside edge of it, and it can stay. So from there, I'm kind of looking at this brow shape then, which we can talk about later. Yeah. And there I have 2 eyes that match with each other. That I am not, if I'm drawing both eyes at the same time, I'm not going to run into the problem of drawing one really good eye, getting it done, and then having the challenge of making a second eye to match. I already have two eyes that fit the same face and make sense together. So I'm going to do the same thing whenever you want something to be more or less symmetrical. It's important to make sure that you are drawing both objects at the same time, the objects that are going to go together. All right. I'm not expecting your drawings to advance from this to this overnight. Mostly what I'm wanting you to see is that I am never going to spend too much time just drawing on one eye without going in and drawing on the other one as well. That I always want to be moving around in my drawing and not focusing too much attention on one area and neglecting other areas, because that's how you end up with drawings that have different parts of them that don't fit together. And what we're really looking for is a drawing where it looks like the eyes and the nose and the mouth all fit together and all belong to the same person. So you'll see me bounce around in this drawing quite a bit as I'm working. I've actually spent a lot more time on just the eyes than I normally would. Normally I wouldn't get this into the eyes unless I already know where the mouth and chin and everything else goes, so I can get a better sense of the drawing as a whole before getting too much into one section. All right, so I do want to really reiterate, an eye is not symmetrical with itself. We don't have a football shape for an eye. Generally, it's going to come in here. Even that little bit is enough to really help. And this is going to come down a little bit more gradually. So even if all that you learn from this is to take your football shaped eye and just cut this little bit out of it, that's a good place to start. And we don't have the whole iris in there. The iris is going to go off the top. Almost always it's the top. If someone's looking down at you, sometimes you'll see this iris at the bottom. That's okay, but normally we see it at the top. The pupil doesn't generally get covered up. That's because if the pupil gets covered up, then you can't see. You can see this would be the eyeball of someone that is above you looking down at you. So you would see up their nostrils here if we got their nose in there. This isn't something we typically see. this is what we want to look at more. From there, you can start to do a whole lot of other stuff, getting even like the width of the eyelid in there, where this inside corner of the eye is sectioned off, starting to think about eyelashes, and highlights in the eye. There's a whole lot that you can do from here. But that basic shape is what we want to focus on first. And then once you feel fairly comfortable with that shape of the eye, then is when I want you to look at making these guidelines for yourself. So this is my center line. Let's bring these ones a little closer to the center line. My inside of the eye, outside of the eye, inside of the eye, outside of the eye. This one, I'm just going to bring a line straight across, getting me these 2 points and these 2 points. So once you're pretty comfortable with the shape of the eye, that's when I want you to go on to figuring out how to lay out two eyes that are more or less symmetrical. All right. So really focus right now on looking at the people around you, look at their eyes, see what different eye shapes you see, and pick some eyes. Look at some pictures of people that you like, and see if you can draw their eyes. See if you can figure out how to lay them out so that the two eyes will match each other, and just have some fun. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. If there's anything specifically that you'd like to work on drawing, send me a message. I'm Doug Weaver Art on just about every platform, so I'm easy to find. If there's anything you want more information about how to draw, you can shoot me an email or send me a message.